Donald Trump has confirmed in writing his plans for a 50% tariff on all copper imports into his country.
Now, Canada's Minister of Industry, Melanie Joly, says Ottawa will not make an official statement on those potential copper tariffs.
Copper prices surge to record high, in largest increase since 80s. Mark Carney responds to Donald Trump's 35% tariff threat to Canada. Did you hear that Trump just slapped a 50% tariff on copper imports? Do you know how that will jack up the cost of your next electric car? And did you see Canada reroute its copper to Asia, netting a 27% export boost? Welcome to the copper crisis of 2025, where America's bid to protect itself backfires spectacularly. On July 8, 2025, President Trump announced under Section 232 a 50% tariff on all copper imports, effective August 1, 2025, citing national security. The idea was to spur domestic mines. America digs up over 2/3 of its copper in Arizona, but the move sent prices soaring. By mid-July, U.S. copper traded at $5.68 per pound, a 138% premium over global benchmarks. That price shock rippled through factories. Builders warned of 20% hikes on plumbing and wiring, and automakers cringed at an extra 80 kilograms of copper per electric vehicle, tacking on roughly $396 per electric vehicle. U.S. manufacturers cried foul. Over 200 petitions flooded the Commerce Department, begging for exemptions on vital imports. Yet, bureaucratic backlogs left many waiting months. In the meantime, construction sites saw copper coil orders grind to a halt, and EV production lines paused to recalculate budgets. Data centers, which rely on copper for cooling and power, delayed expansion plans as costs climbed. Canada, long a copper exporter for the U.S., seized the moment. In 2023, Canada shipped $9.3 billion of copper products, 52% destined south of the border. But in Q2 2025, Canadian exports to China, Japan, and South Korea jumped 27%, as Asian buyers snapped up traceable, tariff-free Canadian copper. Prime Minister Mark Carney's government backed this shift, funding rail upgrades and offering exporters trade credit insurance, covering 90% of any losses. Meanwhile, American miners watched helplessly. Rio Tinto's stalled Arizona project, key to boosting U.S. output, remains mired in permits, so the U.S. still imports 810,000 metric tons of refined copper. With domestic supply constrained, the tariff simply made vital inputs more expensive, not more available. Wall Street noted the irony. S&P Global analysts warned the tariff would hurt U.S. security by crippling industries critical to defense. Communities felt the pinch. In Detroit, a battery plant manager said, "Copper costs jumped overnight, and we'll pass that on to customers or cut jobs." In Houston, pipe fabricators warned of 20% layoffs if steel and copper costs stay elevated. Even consumers notice. Wire-free headphones and smartphones now carry a premium, reflecting the hidden cost of copper's spike. This tariff war isn't just theoretical. It's playing out in our wallets, our jobs, and our next car purchase. Next, we'll explore how U.S. lawmakers scramble to pass a Copper Relief Act. Farmers drill for native copper, and small businesses fight to survive. Don't miss how this battle over a simple metal could reshape America's industrial future. Before we dive back in, please hit the like button. Your support fuels every story we share. We're aiming for 5,000 subscribers on Global Insight, and your subscription would mean the world to us. Thank you for helping us grow. Now let's continue. Trump's 50% copper tariff could raise the cost of appliances, EVs, and other goods, experts warn. As U.S. factories scrambled to secure copper, Canada quietly grabbed the reins. Asian smelters in Shanghai and Osaka placed repeat orders for Canadian shipments, untouched by U.S. duties. In the second quarter of 2025, Canadian copper exports to Asia leapt 27%, translating to roughly $1.3 billion in additional revenue. Buyers cited Canada's blockchain traceability, live tracking of ore from mine to port, ensuring purity and origin without custom surprises. Back in the States, producers faced sticker shock. Automotive suppliers reported that copper costs rose 40% year-to-date. Builders saw plumbing material jump overnight. A Midwestern electrician lamented, "We budgeted $5.50 per pound. Now it's over $8, and homeowners will pay." Even Silicon Valley felt it. Data center expansions delayed as cooling system bids ballooned, threatening to stall new server farms critical for AI development. Washington's promise to protect domestic mines rang hollow. The U.S. produced just 1.1 million tons of copper in 2024 versus global output of 23 million. Not nearly enough. New projects like the stalled Rio Tinto mine in Arizona remain tied up in red tape. As a result, the U.S. still imports 810,000 metric tons of refined copper annually, paying premium prices rather than nurturing homegrown growth. U.S. manufacturers filed over 200 exemption petitions, hoping to skirt the tariff. But Commerce's backlog meant some waited past October for decisions. In the meantime, some plants idled lines. A Pennsylvania appliance maker warned of a 30-day shutdown if inputs didn't arrive. Layoffs loomed. Food processing equipment firms face similar threats. Copper-lined tubes and panels are now black market commodities. Meanwhile, global markets surged. The London Metal Exchange saw a record drawdown. COMEX inventories soared to 191,600 metric tons ahead of the tariff, while LME stocks plunged 60% to 90,600 tons as buyers front-loaded orders. Higher premiums encouraged recycling. Scrap dealers enjoyed unprecedented demand. But that patchwork solution can't feed new factories. At home, American workers bristled. A union rep at Anaconda Copper in Montana protested, "We dig good copper here, but without mine approvals, we can't ramp up." Why force us to buy expensive imports? Environmental reviews and litigation delayed expansions, leaving U.S. refineries idle while factories paid double. Canada capitalized with government aid. The Canadian Mineral Development Program injected $200 million into exploration and rail links to BC ports. Export Credit Canada underwrote large deals, while Canada's single smelter in Rouyn-Noranda ramped up to full capacity. Its success spurred talk of a second facility, feeding global demand just as U.S. supply tightened. This copper clash isn't just about metal. It's about who controls the future. Electric vehicles, renewable energy grids, 5G networks, and advanced weaponry all rely on copper's conductive magic. By driving up costs, the U.S. tariff risked slowing innovation at home while fueling growth abroad. By late summer 2025, the ripple effects of Trump's copper tariff had set off alarm bells in Washington. Canadian producers, riding high on their Asian surge, moved to cement gains through a Copper Resilience Act. Ottawa announced $150 million in grants for new smelter capacity and expanded blockchain programs, ensuring that 50% of Canadian copper exports would remain tariff-free in long-term contracts with China, Japan, and South Korea. Meanwhile, BRICS nations, led by Brazil and South Africa, quietly explored copper alliances to weaken the dollar's grip. Discussions at the BRICS summit in August hinted at a copper alliance to trade using yuan and rupees, reducing exposure to U.S. trade policy. If realized, this could redirect 5 to 10 million metric tons of copper trade away from dollar-settled markets, further isolating U.S. suppliers. Back in the U.S., desperate measures were on the table. The Department of Commerce fast-tracked 15 mine permits under emergency powers, promising to unlock 500,000 metric tons of annual domestic production within months. Yet, environmental reviews and tribal consultations threatened to slow approvals, leaving uncertain whether American supply could ever match tariff-shielded imports. On the Hill, bipartisan talks eyed rolling back the copper duty by half, down to 25%, to rein in runaway prices. Advocates argued this compromise could lower copper costs by 20% and soothe manufacturing pains. Opponents warned it would betray Trump's America First agenda. Hearings were scheduled for September as CEOs from Ford, Siemens, and Tesla prepared to testify on the fatal hit to EV and grid storage production. Consumers felt the squeeze in surprising ways. A homeowner replacing wiring in Phoenix saw quotes jump from $3,200 to $5,100. In Michigan, a copper tubing shortage delayed furnace installations by 6 weeks. Even small businesses felt it. A custom jewelry maker in Vermont lamented that scrap copper prices had doubled, making her artisan rings cost prohibitive. Yet there was a silver lining. Scrap recycling boomed. U.S. recycling centers reported a 45% increase in copper scrap intake, as factories and contractors broke down old wiring to meet demand. This provided a short-term cushion, but could never replace the millions of tons needed for new projects. In boardrooms, executives privately mused that the tariff may have lit a fire under U.S. miners, if only permits could clear faster. Some lenders offered low-interest loans to junior mining companies, while universities raced to develop lower copper content alloys. Innovation labs at Purdue and MIT ran prototypes using graphene and aluminum copper composites to reduce reliance on pure copper, though those solutions remain years from scale. As Canada cements its role, America faces a stark choice: double down on tariffs and risk further isolation, or pivot toward collaboration with allies and invest in domestic supply chains. For U.S. workers and consumers, the stakes have never been higher. If this showdown over copper tariffs caught your attention, click the video on your screen now. No more food. Walmart replied to Trump's tariffs by leaving America. To see how trade wars are reshaping our access to everyday essentials, don't miss it. Tap that video and stay informed.